run hardly a step in the last 3 weeks. So yesterday I did an easy 20-minute run and felt pretty good, and I kind of got my hopes up thinking that I would be able to bounce back and do some strides today. But I spiked up and made it about 10 meters and kind of pulled up. I've just got this lightning rod of pain going up through my leg, and the MRI told me that it's a pretty messed up ankle. So I'd rather not risk serious injury. The doctor said if I fractured it further, I could be, getting surgery next week. So if I was 24, I might roll the dice, but I'm 32 and I'm ecstatic with what I've accomplished. I think we're going to send probably the best team to Rio that we've ever sent in the men's 800. A really young and passionate team, and I'm excited to watch them. I've actually never been a spectator at an Olympic trials, so this will be fun for me to watch.
How frustrating is it to have this happen?
That's a great word. It's frustrating. It's disappointing. I'm not sad. I realized that at 32 I was almost on borrowed time, and I'm just absolutely grateful for my health that I've had over the last decade. That I've made 10 teams. That I made 2 Olympic teams. I'd have loved to have been in Rio, but that wasn't in the cards for me. And so now I can be a great teammate and cheer my teammates on. Working hard for Run Gum. We're activating here. We're handing out thousands of dollars worth of Run Gum, and like I said, I get to be a spectator and watch some really incredible races.
What does this mean for the tattoo and T-Mobile and all that?
That's the hardest thing. Like the sponsors are great, and Brooks and T-Mobile, Run Gum, Hanson Dodge Creative, Zappos. I mean, I worked hard to put this great portfolio of sponsors together, and I really believed that I'd be on that team, and the workouts were indicating that. 4 weeks ago, I called my coach Sam, and said, "You better get an Airbnb in Rio because we're going." And that, I'm not a bullshitter. In 2012, I said, "There's no reason I won't be on this team, but my training has gone perfectly." And up to about 4 weeks ago, I would have said the exact same thing. But at 32, I can't run the same type of workouts that I did when I was 24. And stepping on the track and trying to rip 200s and 23 is something that my legs need, but something that they can't quite handle anymore. That's okay.
So for the sponsors, I guess, how did you break the news to them?
I called each one individually and let them know, and they're all very supportive. I mean, this is pro sports. If you're going to sponsor athletes, you're going to understand that this has happened sometimes, and it's disappointing. But it's like walking into a casino and putting money down on red. Sometimes it's going to come up black, and that's just the way it is.
Tell me about the black tape thing. I mean, are you still leading the?
Well, the absurdity of all this is that this event and the Olympic Games and any Olympic Team USA event is governed by the Ted Stevens Amateur Sports Act. So we call ourselves a professional sport, but we're not a professional sport when we're governed by an Amateur Sports Act. And that act dictates that USATF and USOC basically get to say whatever they want to do. Whatever rules they want to enforce, they can do that here in order to fund their mission. And part of that is forcing athletes to tape over any form of advertising on their body that's non-compliant with their rules. And I was going to go out there with tattoos on my forearms and my shoulders, and I was going to have to tape over those with black tape. And so I said, hey, if I got to tape over my tattoos with black tape, then I would ask everybody else to put a bit of black tape to make a point of how ridiculous this is. We've got 50% of professional track and field athletes in America living below the poverty line, and that's unacceptable. And we could lift them all out of poverty with one rule change. But the powers that be would rather see every single dollar filter through their greedy hands first and let our most talented athletes live below the poverty line and struggle to pay their bills and be forced to work part-time jobs rather than train full-time. That's not how we create the best track and field team in the world. It's unacceptable, and I've been fighting hard for the last 5 years to change that. I've invested tens of thousands of dollars, to bring litigation against these organizations, and we're just going to have to figure a way around this and figure a way to bring track and field into the modern era, shake off our amateur past, and make it a full-fledged professional sport. Until then, we're all going to be sitting around trying to take scraps that the governing bodies toss us.
How do you do that from the sidelines? Can you continue that activism?
That's the hardest part for me, is that I think I could have been a really effective leader out there in kind of uniting the athletes and bringing about some change, and certainly bringing about some awareness about what's going on. It's a lot harder for me to do that on the sidelines.
Will the black tape campaign go on without you?
It's up to the athletes. I can't do this by myself. I can be as annoying as possible on social media and do interviews all day long, but until the athletes come together and decide that enough's enough, nothing's ever going to change.
You said one rule could bring people out of charity, out of poverty.
Yeah.
I think about 3 rules that need to be changed. So which
Yeah, there's a lot of rules
Which rule
that
are you talking about?
the one that dictates that athletes can't market themselves to any non-apparel manufacturer. So as it stands, the only logos that can be on display this weekend at the Olympic trials or this week is that of your apparel manufacturer. In my case, it's Brooks. You'll see Nike, you'll see Brooks, you'll see Reebok, you'll see
Essentially what your
Hoka.
lawsuit's about, right?
Yeah, exactly. But Run Gum, my company, we have thousands of dollars that we would love nothing more than to give to athletes here competing. But we're not going to do it without some form of return on our investment. We have to have our logo somewhere. So we're sitting here with a pile of cash that we just want to give to athletes. But you've got to allow us to put our logo somewhere. And we're not asking for a giant billboard, Beast logo. We're asking for the same rights that the shoe companies have. And it's hurting athletes that there are thousands of companies out there with billions of dollars in funds available to be invested, and they're hamstrung. They're not able to invest that money. As a CEO of a company that could potentially invest thousands, if not millions of dollars over the next 20 or 30 years, I'm telling you right now, I have absolutely no interest in investing money in track and field until these rules change, because it's disadvantageous for me to do so. It would be incredibly more, I get a much better ROI investing in marathons or Ragnars or any host of other running events, because track and field is making it an economic climate that's extremely disadvantageous for us to do so.
Do you have any other athletes who have helped you with this activism and who have kind of been
Absolutely.
outspoken as
Lauren
you are?
Fleshman, Kara Goucher, Jordan Scott. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's a lot of athletes that are really, really tired of the way that the governing bodies have been treating them for the last 2-3 decades.
How much longer do you see yourself competing at this point?
I think that's really up to Brooks at this point. I feel like I have ticked just about every single one of the running goals that I've set for myself. The only 2 that I haven't ticked are winning an Olympic medal and running a marathon. And obviously the medal's not going to happen for me, it looks like. But I'd like to run a marathon at some point. I think that I could possibly run one more year, but it really comes down to Brooks at this point. And if this is the end of the road for me, I'm just so grateful for the experiences that I've had over the last 10 years. Grateful that I've been healthy and made 2 Olympic teams and won 6 U.S. titles. I think the jury's out. I'm not announcing my retirement today. I think that's something that when this season finishes up, we can all sit down and decide what's going to be best for Brooks, what's going to be best for me. I do have a lot of other irons in the fire, though, and if this isn't the end of the road, I got a lot of work to do with Run Gum. I've announced that as soon as I retire, my intention is to climb the tallest mountain on every continent, and so that's going to take a lot of training. That's a goal I set for myself when I was 10 years old, and I've had it on the back burner for 22 years now, and I'm just starting to sense that in the near future I'm going to be able to start tackling that goal as well.
Do you think any of these changes that you're talking about could have happened without, by any method other than like an athlete strike?
We tried litigation. We tried suing for the changes, saying that they were violating antitrust laws. And sure enough, I think everyone realizes that yes, they are violating antitrust laws, but this 1978 Amateur Sports Act gives them implied immunity. It allows them to break that law to fund their mission. And I think that's wrong. So because we've appealed that decision, but I think that the most effective way is through athletes uniting and saying enough's enough. But you need a really powerful leader, and I can't lead very well from the sideline, unfortunately.
That after action, like no action other than a strike would work, right? So United after action.
Not necessarily. We saw athletes kind of rise up in 2012 and say we demand change because Rule 40 was so restrictive, and the USOC kind of tossed us a bone and said, okay, well now we're going to allow waivers, and it was a great PR stunt, but it really wasn't effective. But it shows that they're listening, and I think that the IOC is going to have so much egg on their face regarding Rule 40 after this games that they're going to have to change that. So as athletes rise up and speak out and the public becomes aware of what's going on, I think that some meaningful change could take place. Through PR, yeah, exactly.
I mean, if at the Olympics, I don't know, Usain Bolt, Michael Phelps, and
yeah, if you had
they
Usain
all
Bolt,
tweet
Michael
out,
Phelps,
if they all just tweet out, "Hey, Puma's my sponsor," because
yeah.
at the trials, like you're allowed to come.
What are they going to do? Are they going
come to a Brooks event? At the Olympics, you could not.
Yeah.
This wouldn't be allowed, right?
This would be allowed. I just wouldn't be able to tweet about it.
But it couldn't.
They could rent out a house, and I could go to the house.
Speak to people,
Yeah.
but not. You can't promote Brooks.
I just couldn't promote them exactly.
It's just ridiculous.
Bullshit. Yeah.
I think part of the
But
problem is the athletes like Usain Bolt, Michael Phelps, they're already making so much money from
So you got to think of it almost as like a lottery, and we're all entering into this lottery on the chance that we get to the games and become the top 1%, because the top 1% are making millions and millions of dollars. I was part of that lottery, in 2008 and 2012 I could have spoken out more and put my neck on the line more, but I thought if I can just win that medal, then I'll be paid millions of dollars on the back end. And the reality is you could be Leo Manzano, for example, and win a silver medal and get your contract cut the next year. So winning a medal is not enough. Winning one medal might not even be enough. You need to be Bolt or Felix or Phelps and win many, many, many medals, and then you finally get your share of the pie. All the other Olympians go home with absolutely nothing.
What is the best way to divide up that pie? Because you have a lot of Olympians.
That's a question that's over my head. I don't know. That's a really tough one. I think the beginning is to implement a 50% revenue sharing model. It's very common in professional sports. NBA, MLB, NHL, 50% revenue sharing model is very common. The IOC is going to make $4 billion this year. That's their gross revenue. Take $2 billion of that and divide that among the 10,500 Olympians that are going to be out in Rio, and the IOC would write a $190,000 check to every single Olympian. That's a pretty good payday for 4 years worth of work. I think that's the minimum right there. And then also they need to open up some advertising space and allow Olympians to actually thank the sponsors that got them. Had I made this Olympic team, it wasn't Nike or AT&T that got me there. It was Brooks. And I wouldn't even be allowed to thank Brooks. Brooks has been the only reason I've been running for the last 3 years. Without them, I would have retired in 2014. So, any beast that makes the team this year, I think they need to make sure that they thank the sponsor that got them there.
So there's other sports that have like 50-50-ish revenue sharing. They 40 years ago they were getting screwed as bad as Olympians.
Many
Now
were.
they have, like,
You saw tennis in the 1970s and 80s unionize and rise up, and now they have the Grand Slam that pays the millions of dollars, and the tennis tour that pays really, really well. And the tennis players go to the Olympic Games as an afterthought if it doesn't interfere with the other things they have going on. It's like the basketball players. A lot of them aren't going to play in the Olympics because they don't want to risk the injury. The Olympics isn't everything, but in track and field it is, because we are so intrinsically linked to the Olympic movement. There's a reason that the entire world, or at least the entire United States, is watching what takes place in Eugene this weekend. It's not tuning into Eugene every day of the week, but they're really curious about what's going to happen at the Olympic trials. This is our Super Bowl, and it only happens once every 4 years. We need to have something that people actually want to watch every single year.
Do you know what percent? I don't know the answer. What percent the USOC says they give back to athletes?
I'm sure it's like USATF. Oh, we give 58% of our revenue back to athletes, but then they call paying meet officials giving back to the athletes. They call putting on events giving back to the athletes. I'm talking about writing checks to athletes, and an independent economist estimated that was 8% of their gross revenue went back to athletes, and it's just unacceptable. It doesn't affect me. I mean, I may have one more year in my legs. I may be retired
this year.
Sorry?
Are you able to run this year at all?
No.
Later?
I mean, I'm a championship runner. The only races that matter to me take place at Hayward Field in Rio, and I'm not going to be able to run it either. So I'll work on run gum for the rest of the summer. I'll catch some fish. I'll drink some beers. I'll watch some races. It'll be a great summer. But I'm not interested in running meets that no one cares about. And these races that take place in Europe, I don't know that anyone is really watching, are they? I mean, you are, and we are. But is the rest of the world watching? How do we make a product?
Diamond League's be in sports.
Exactly. How do we make a product that the entire world stops and watches, like they stop and watch Wimbledon, like they stop and watch the U.S. Open? I want to. Someone needs to create a product that the entire world wants to see, because right now we don't have that product.
So getting to that is going to take athletes being willing to stake their livelihood and missing meets and last year missing Worlds.
I mean, I did. I missed Worlds last year because of a disagreement that I had with USATF, but it was something I was very passionate about, and I think that was a very effective form of protest. But I'm in a unique position. I can pay my bill. I got run gum, and I've got other things in the fire, and I'm going to be able to pay my bills whether I have running income or not. But the majority of athletes are not in that position, and I would never suggest that they put their neck on their line and risk putting food on their table for their families. There needs to be a way that we can get these governing bodies to start doing the right thing. It's going to be a long shot considering they're taking bribes and they're covering up scandals and. What a
I saw
nightmare.
something. It might have been on like Sports Illustrated or something. You said the USOC was stealing the money. I don't know. I thought that was a bit.
Yeah, the governing
it's
bodies are
extreme.
stealing the money.
They're not stealing.
They are,
They're-
absolutely. When
it's
when
going somewhere.
it is going
It's
somewhere.
not theft, but it's
It's
like,
going somewhere, but it ain't going to the athletes that create. So let me put it this way: the athletes continue to have a job. The sport continues to exist without the governing bodies, but the governing bodies don't exist without the athletes, and I think they forget that. Too often, the governing bodies forget that the only reason they have a job is because of the athletes. And if you starve the athletes of all of the money available in track and field, then the athletes stop training, and you stop having that entity. And that's what's going to happen if they continue to do this. Again, 50% of professional track and field athletes living below the poverty line. That is simply unacceptable. Do you agree?
I get it. Yeah, but then you're like, oh, should the
Yeah.
are people into the hammer throw or something? you
No,
know?
and I'm not saying Hammer survives. I'm saying we need to create a for-profit entity that is palatable to ours that people want to come out and watch. I don't know if Women's Hammer makes
'Cause
that
it's
cut.
like the- yeah.
I don't know if Men's 800 makes that cut.
Right.
You know, Men's 100 makes the cut.
Because like,
you know,
yeah,
the mile
if,
makes the
if
cut.
I don't know, ping pong or sailing's an Olympic
Yeah.
sport. Just because I want to sail, I don't necessarily need to make a living doing it. If I'm
Yeah,
good at it,
I absolutely
wanna
agree,
sail
and that's a fair point. If people just don't want to watch track and field, then that's okay.
But there's
you know?
enough,
But
I think, of
there
sports
are
that they
people
wanna
that want to watch it, and there is enough money to lift the athletes out of poverty if the greedy assholes at the governing bodies just start sharing some of it. You know, it's
Would the USATF budget go up? Like doubled? And you guys-
doubled, and our
2
salaries
million?
certainly didn't
Yeah,
double.
2
You know,
million more, that was people
Lamine Diak allegedly accepting $1.2 million in bribes to cover up doping scandals, and you know, I mean, there's money here.
There's
It's just
money somewhere.
there's money somewhere. It's just not going to my colleagues, unfortunately.
So the injury, when did this come up?
About 3 weeks ago in tough sprint session. You know, we like to use this analogy of sharpening the pencil, and each week you sharpen it a little bit more and a little bit more, and you want it perfectly sharp when you go to race. And I sharpened it too much, and I did the exact same thing that I've done for the last 10 years, and it always works. But at 32, I just couldn't quite get away with what I used to be able to get away with.
And it was like a sudden thing, or just pain afterwards?
Afterwards, my ankle swelled up really bad. I thought, okay, well, I've overdone it. I'll ice it and take a couple days, and it'll be fine. And it didn't get fine. It got worse, and then I got the imaging done, and was hoping to throw a Hail Mary out here, but I spiked it this morning. I couldn't run a step, so
You didn't run since then, you ran today now.
I took 3 weeks off, and I was still planning on racing. But if I wasn't feeling the excruciating pain in my left ankle, I'd still race, just to go out and enjoy being a competitor. I really do enjoy racing, but.
Who do you think will win the 800 now?
It's so hard. If this wasn't the Olympic trials, you know, it would be Donovan or Boris. But because it's the Olympic trials and we don't know how those guys can handle that pressure, it could be anyone. You know, the Olympic trials changes everything because there's so much pressure on these athletes. I think Donovan showed at the NCAAs that he can handle that pressure, and I think right now my money is on him.
Your contract up at the end of next year.
My contract's up at the end of this year. Brooks has the option to extend it, and again, like Brooks wants me around. I love living in Seattle. I love running for this company. I'm happy to keep working, but if not, then again, I think there's a lot of goals that I've set for myself off the track that I would like to start pursuing. Thanks, guys.